I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland and support the Constitution and laws thereof, and that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment, diligently and faithfully, without partiality or prejudice, execute the position of police officer according to the Constitution and laws of this state. Congratulations, welcome on board, man.
We get to jump in.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, I was just gonna sit back here and like make faces.
One more person on that side.
if you don't know, Officer Longo also got first in the We'll give the audience about 3 to 4 minutes before we proceed forward. Let them take some pictures. Congratulations again. Thanks for coming out, y'all. Thank you. Proceeding forward, council member statement regarding conflicts of interest on agenda items. Would any council member like to make a statement tonight? Hearing none, I am proceeding forward to public comment pertaining to agenda and non-agenda items. To comment on a specific agenda item after it is discussed by council, please sign up with the city clerk, and you will be asked to come forward at the appropriate time. Do we have public comment pertaining to agenda or non-agenda items? Okay, yep.
Alder, did you want to speak now, or were you going to hold your comment? Oh, Cluth signed up.
Either's fine. I can call you guys at the parking meter too, if you want to keep it. Again, it's not going to be a back and forth necessarily, but it will be, you come up and speak. So that'll be after council discussion. So you can do before or after, yep. We can wait till after.
If folks want to comment after the council discusses the matter, then they should sign up here with the
Yep,
clerk.
just make sure you sign up there if that's the case. Up next, we have consideration and review. There is one item that was added that I'll be asking council for a consensus tonight so that staff can begin processing it. It is the leave buyout recommendation. We knew this was coming up, but we now have the hours and the total cost of it. When we get down to it, we'll discuss further. Would anybody like a couple of minutes to read over it? Hearing none, I'm proceeding forward. Resolution, ordinances, and agreements. Introduction, ordinance 22-2025, amendment to fences. Questions, comments, concerns by council? It's pretty much, it's the same thing that we saw, yeah.
It is. It's essentially just removing the permit requirements specifically.
So, with that, hearing nothing, I am going down to adoption, ordinance 21-2025, amendment to restrict industrial district. Any comments? Well, Jim, do you have something you want to say before I get to that?
You go ahead.
Okay. Any additional comments, questions, concerns by council? Hearing none, Jim, did you want to say something?
As we talked briefly about this at our last meeting, we're going to asking to hold off on approval. We didn't want it to disappear from the agenda. But we think we still need to do a little bit of tweaking to that one before we adopt it. So it's actually going to have to go back through the whole cycle.
Yep, so this will fall off, and I think, yeah, we
but
talked
we
about this
are-
briefly.
right.
It's going to hit the 70-day mark.
Okay.
After that, any additional comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, I am proceeding forward. City manager report, Jim.
Not a whole lot new since it's only been a couple weeks since we met in November. Just charter and code update. We've got those 2 ordinances pending right now. That's really all that's been developed at this point. We haven't put pen to paper on the site plan chapter revisions yet. As far as the Roberts Mill Road reconstruction, we're kind of in a holding pattern right now. It's in the special counsel's hands, working with the bonding company and the subcontractor for the pavement out there. So hopefully we'll see some movement after the holidays on that. I'm not anticipating a lot of exchange back and forth from the various attorneys at this point to occur over the holidays. Last thing I've got, the Memorial Drive water service reconnections. You'll recall that initially we had planned to replace the water main in Memorial Drive and found out as we started to investigate what was actually in the ground that we don't need to replace the entire line, as it turns out that it is ductile iron, which is what we want. We thought we had a lot of cast iron there. So unfortunately, there's a dual water line running in Memorial Drive, but all the services for the houses are connected to the line that we want to abandon. That is not ductile iron. So we have to reconnect everybody to the ductile iron line. So there's going to be a lot of cross cuts across Memorial Drive. So at any rate, we met on the 18th to review the 90% plans, which really are the plans that are able to go out for bid and for permits, or for permits rather. And we've already submitted our grading application and so on to the county for the project. So we laid out the project's timeline, and we did decide to extend the water main up Church Street. There's a couple services a couple properties that are not served from West Baltimore Street in the vicinity of Church Street, and there's also a stub that comes off of Baltimore Street. And the idea is eventually we'll be able to loop it back to the water main in West Baltimore Street, but we're not going to do that right now. We're going to wait until there's some other reason to go into the state highway right of way to do that. So that'll be a future project, but we're going to take the water line as close as we can without getting into the state highway right of way. So in the future, we'll be able to loop that. But that's just one thing that we decided to do since the last time we talked about the project. That's really all I've got since the last time we talked. Happy to field any questions, though.
Any questions, comments, concerns for the city manager? Hearing none, proceeding forward, department reports. Jim, do you have any additional stuff to add on that?
No, again, if there are questions, I'd be happy to try to answer or get you an answer for Monday.
Additional comments, questions, concerns regarding the department reports? Hearing none, proceeding forward to old business. Approval of revisions to general specifications for street and stormwater management facilities construction. Jim, do you have anything additional?
We did have some more conversation on that with the engineer, but we haven't really delved into the street width with the planning commission yet.
Any additional comments, questions, concerns from council regarding that? Hearing none, proceeding forward. Welcome sign. Again, we began discussion on this in November. There is a quote provided to council that just kind of gives you a heads up on what that would look like if you went with just a regular base without the LED, and then if you added the LED signs to it. Again, this is mainly for consideration. We're not moving on anything like that right now, but just keep it in mind, and we'll follow back up on it in January, unless anybody wants
This
to.
is for 1 or 2 signs?
So that's for one sign, if I'm remembering correctly. That's going to be per sign.
Got it, thank you.
Yep. Additional comments, questions, concerns regarding it? Again, this is mainly for you guys just to digest, and we'll get back to it. Nobody's putting up signs in December. Hearing nothing, I'm proceeding forward. New business, monthly financial report. Questions, comments, concerns by council? Hearing none, I'm proceeding forward. Accounts payables, questions, comments, concerns by council? Hearing none, proceeding forward. Leave buyout. So you guys should have a memo regarding the leave buyout. I gotta figure out where I put that. I'll read it out for the public as well so they can hear on it. In 2025, several staff members were unable to use their accrued leave in a timely manner or efficient manner due to essential duties related to city roles. These mission-critical responsibilities directly impacted their ability to take leave, resulting in carryover to the end of the year. It is further noted that even if this additional leave were carried over, it is unlikely that these employees would be able to adequately use it, given ongoing operational demands. Officer Longo spent most of the year at the police academy and is currently in active field training. The objective for any officer hire is to ensure thorough training and swift readiness to support law enforcement and community needs. Since Officer Longo's time in the academy and subsequent field training took precedence, it was impractical for him to use his accrued leave in 2025. Accordingly, it is recommended that council consider a leave buyout of 114 hours at a cost of $2,889.90. Officer Klezak was sworn in a lateral new hire in October, but accumulated leave prior to this as he was on the force, again, prior to that swearing in. He has similarly been undergoing required field training, which must take priority over leave. Based on consensus with the chief of police, city manager, and myself, it is recommended to approve a buyout of 64 hours at a cost of $1,823.36. And that's a recommendation for both Officer Longo and Officer Klezak from me, the chief and city manager. City Manager Jim Wepricht assumed multiple department head roles during vacancies and accumulated both annual and compensatory leave for additional hours worked. His leadership across economic development and planning and zoning and code enforcement amid a turbulent city period has been exemplary. Despite attempts to reduce his leave, operational needs made it impossible for Jim to use this time without impacting city functions. Therefore, it is recommended to approve a buyout payment for 190 hours totaling $10,212.50. Jim is a vital asset to Taneytown's government and deserves fair compensation for his commitment. The total recommended leave buyout is $14,925.76. There is no need for a budgetary amendment currently, as leave is budgeted as a liability annually in the annual budget. Any adjustments arising from buyout approval will be reflected in a mid-year budget amendment. Should there be any questions or concerns, contact me. For council, additional comments, questions, concerns regarding it.
I have a few questions, I guess. I was under the impression we had a set policy as far as leave buyout or leave extension goes. Is this above and beyond that stated policy?
I would say not particularly because, again, you guys currently make that policy.
I mean, isn't there a formal plan outlining how leave is to be used, which leave can be carried forward and which leave can't? Seems to me, we just swore in all of us so long ago, and we're paying him for leave that he hasn't taken. He hasn't been on the street, so I don't understand what that's all about.
And that's kind of, he won't be able to take that leave. It's kind of the same thing with Jim and Officer Klezak, is there is not going to be any point in the near future that they will be able to use any of this leave.
Zach's the same way. I mean, he's a transfer. It seems like I don't know how he could have accumulated the leave. Part of the training process, I would think, to be involved in the city work on a day-to-day basis. I thought you had to be here a certain amount of time before you accrued leave. I didn't know that was automatic.
Employees start accruing leave as soon as they're hired. So in the case of Officer Longo, he couldn't take leave during his time in the academy.
No, he wasn't on the street, even though he's in the academy.
Right, so he's
still a hired employee.
Right, he was still employed by the city, so he still accrued his holidays and annual leave, just like any other police officer would, even though he was in a training scenario.
And I know you've put in a stalwart job during the past year trying to cover a bunch of different departments at different times, and I really have a little problem with what they're recommending for you, but again, I don't understand why we don't allow the current policy to take effect, why we have to supersede that.
Because it wouldn't work, even if they carried it over, they're not gonna be able to use it. We're just gonna come back to this next year, essentially.
Purpose of this, but
I understand Jim because he got the redheaded stepchild treatment while everyone was out. Is this going to be kind of how things need to go if we hire police officers? Is basically their first year of with training and such is basically I want to see is this going to be something we're going to be looking at each year with
setting a
new
precedent
people,
for all future hires.
or is this just timing worked out and we were shorthanded and we couldn't get all the leave in that we needed to because we needed to have officers on the streets?
Well, I think in the case of the police officers, the timing of the academy played into it with this one. So, Officer Longo just graduated recently. And again, he was unable to take any leave, during the length of the academy. And then with field training that's ongoing. With Officer Klezak, he came on, again, in October. And so at that point, other officers who have been with us had already scheduled their holidays and such. So once he was done his field training,
There was no room for him to
there's-
take leave, essentially.
in order
without
for us to have
compromising
coverage
mission.
for all the vacation or leave that other officers had already scheduled, he's not able to schedule leave and have the city maintain coverage because of things that had been scheduled earlier in the year. So the date that they came on board and were factors in both cases.
Well, basically where I'm headed is, do we need to? I understand, and I'm not against what's before us this evening. I understand what happened. I understand where we are. What I would like to know going forward, should we think about some other form of policy or something that we need to come up with to kind of cover these situations if we're hiring people and things like that? Do we need, and this isn't a like I need an answer right this second. This is putting it out there for everyone to think about. Do we need to revisit the leave and the carryover policies and things like that to make sure that we can either buy out or carry over or whatever we need to do in order to make people whole on things? Do we need to revisit that policy to make it a little more clear, a little more relevant to what we're dealing with, or something along those lines?
Chief, if you don't mind, I actually have a question for you. It might actually tie back into this. So when an officer takes leave, are we using overtime at all to cover some of that gappage?
That's what I was kind of
And
chomping
that's-
at the bit to answer.
It's actually going to be
We-
cheaper to buy the leave out
Right,
than...
we do have an alternative, and that is to grant Klezak and Longo, okay, you want to take this day off, but we still have to maintain coverage. So that would mean we would pay another officer overtime to cover those shifts. And so that actually would be more expensive.
Paid overtime and bonus leave.
No, it's either or.
So that's the thing is, so if you don't do this, you actually end up paying more because you're going to have a more seniored officer covering those shifts and an overtime rate on top of that. So that's actually why we're suggesting part of the leave buyout is because you actually save money by buying the leave out.
Right, correct.
If I'm understanding
And
correctly.
Councilman Mead, if I may, I think this is, and I appreciate your sort of long-term question. This is kind of unique just by the timing of it, because again, Longo, who was just in here this evening, was in the academy, and he's required to have minimum hours. If he were to have taken leave, he wouldn't have graduated from the academy. So that's obvious.
How long is the academy?
It's 6 months. So, so he's in there on the 4th of July. That's a holiday, but he can't take off the 4th of July. He's in there for Labor Day, Memorial Day, but he can't take off those days. So if we were able to, he would kind of come out of there with 7 days to use. But then we look at our schedule and we go, okay, where do we put him? Well, we can't put them anywhere. If we give him that day off, then we got to cover it with somebody else more senior.
So it basically, it might have worked out better, not saying that this is how things need to go, but theoretically, it would have worked out better if academy started on January 2nd.
Absolutely, yep,
And
or-
then you had 6 months worth of year to
Yes, sir.
to
Or
take
if we
care of
hired
things.
Klezak in,
In the spring.
In the spring instead of October. He would have had a longer period to work that in.
Yeah, because Klezak had the same issue with a bunch of field training and things like that.
And that's why you're not seeing other officers on this list, for instance.
Yeah, and that's why I say that. Like I said, I don't have a particular problem with what we're doing here because I do understand the coverage that would have to happen. I'm dealing with it at my own work. So yeah, I don't have a particular problem with this. I just want to see if going forward we need to more codify what we do for this to make sure that we're not coming back with something special. It's oh yeah, we did this already, and here's the policy that we came up with for it. So that's the only thing and like I said, that's not something that's going to happen tonight. That's not good. That's just
It's possible
something
we
to
could be
think
in this
ahead.
situation.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't repeat Jim covering 7 jobs plus cook, bottle washer, and other things. So, because I think Jim might fall over if that happened. But so I think that one's special. But like I said, I just want to, if we can figure that out for the police folks, I think that might be a good thing going forward. But otherwise, I'm good for this.
And I think that's, again, kind of like the chief was saying, this is, he started March, was it, for the academy? When did he start on the academy?
Yeah, I think that's about right, yeah.
So that's, again, if you're going to start, and again, we don't really control when the academy starts, but, if he's starting that time frame, if we're ever somebody through the academy again, we're kind of going to experience the same thing when we come back here. Kind of the same if we're hiring an officer towards the end of the year. Again, it's just 2 time frames that kind of set up this scenario. But like you said, if he would have somehow got out in June or July, for instance, he would have had half the year to start trying to take leave. So it's hard because it's...
My thought then might be just something along the lines of in an officer's first year with training and everything else, best effort will be made to take leave, but it is understood that there is going to be excess leave, and we can offer it. Basically something along those lines. I'm making it up as I go along
And
right now.
I will say, when they come on, for instance, it does help us with the more tenured officers. Again, that kind of that overtime and everything like that helps us when those more tenured officers are taking leave, because again, these guys have to be there anyways.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like I said, I'm good with the principle of it. I have no problems, and I'm good with what we've got on the paper. I just seeing whether we need to make some form of a policy so that we're not reinventing the wheel again next time when we've got another set of training that comes through or something like that.
I appreciate your consideration.
Councilmember Konak, did you have anything? Just want to check with you.
Nope, I think this is a good measure.
Councilmember Miller, Councilmember Karen, you got anything more? Jim, do you want a motion or do you want a consensus on this?
Well, we can,
I was going to try to get it underway.
okay. I suppose a motion and vote would be the ideal.
Looking for a motion in regards to leave buyout.
I move to perform the leave buyout as outlined in the letter.
Taking action on this tonight?
Yeah, that's what,
That, yeah, he had
just so
asked,
staff can start working on it. I mean, if it's either they can start working on it now or they can try to cram it in starting next week.
I
But there's
second
not.
Examine the current policy before we move forward. That, violating current policy in some way. Code. Nobody's been able to answer that question for me. How does this differ from our current policy?
Well, current policy allows employees to carry over 80 hours of annual leave a year. For employees who get compensatory time, we are allowed to bank up to 40 hours. However, in extenuating circumstances where through, not the employee's, choice, just because they didn't schedule vacation, if we're fully staffed and somebody doesn't use their leave, that's on them. But if somebody can't use their leave because we're short-staffed,
Is that what's gotten us, did we promise them that we would compensate them for this leave if they didn't take it? Is that what's behind this?
well, no, there's been
officer
no,
ones,
there's
they
been
really
no,
couldn't-
there's
They
been
were-
no promise made
It was
about it.
mandatory.
And Jim,
and-
for instance, Jim's been taking leave. I mean, one of the instructions I had for him when we actually got the department heads filled was use as much of the leave that you have occurred as possible. So when we get to this point, again, it's reduced. But realistically, you should be compensated if you are unable to take leave due to mission demands. I mean, that's
So, right, the reason we're before you is because our policy doesn't allow for leave to be bought out or more than 40 hours to be carried over. And realistically, in both my case and that of the police officers,
That's why we established the policy we did when we did it, to prevent things like this from happening.
But it didn't prevent it from happening. It happened anyways, and that's why we're trying to deal with it now to make people whole.
It's not like Longo had a choice in whether he took it or not. It was mandatory for him to be at the academy.
And again, the council, whether it's today or whether it's Monday, the policy can be changed with 3 votes.
I'll second the motion.
Who made the motion? Oh, okay. Additional comments, questions, concerns? And again, Jim, just check, I know we already talked about this, but this is already budgeted in, right? I think I remember talking.
we have to account for accrued leave as a liability in finance.
Any additional comments, questions, concerns? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. Carries. Up next, we have parking meters. So let me read the memo on parking meters. As everybody's aware, we had an initial discussion in November pertaining to the parking meters and the holiday season. Council consents that they wanted to forego enforcement on the parking meters until they have decided what to do with parking meters. So parking meters have now been added to the agenda for discussion, and I'm now going to read the memorandum on staff work regarding that so far. Dated today, staff and I participated in 2 conference calls this week exploring parking solutions that promote vehicle turnover without relying on parking meters. These solutions use sensors to monitor parking, enable free 2-hour parking limits, and provide enforcement alerts for overstays. We have examined Frog Parking and Exact Park as primary examples, with 2 provided quotes for your review. These quotes are informal and purely illustrative of potential costs to the city. The key proposal details are sensor-based monitoring, replacing physical meters while ensuring turnover, free parking for 2 hours with automated alerts for enforcement beyond that. Quotes demonstrate feasible pricing structures for implementation. Administration requests council review of the attached materials ahead of the January workshop on metered and downtown parking. Staff will continue investigating additional options and share updates promptly. Please share any questions, comments, or alternative ideas for exploration. This is for informational purposes only, with no immediate decision required, though feedback and direction is welcome. No provisions in the Taneytown City Code, Chapter 193, Vehicles and Traffic, including Article 3, on metered parking or city charter directly governed sensor-based parking enforcement systems, turnover monitoring without meters, or the reference products. Current code authorized council to install meters by Resolution 193-16 and sets related rules, max 2-hour limits at meters under 193-22. But alternative technologies fall under council's general authority for parking regulations C-401. It is my belief that nothing prohibits exploration or adoption of such systems pending any needed ordinance amendments. So again, just to briefly explain that, council is looking at ways to do turnover without parking meters. So I'll open up the floor to council first. Council, any questions, comments, concerns? And again, you guys have the packets regarding those two systems. Just for anybody in the audience, those two systems are Frog Parking and Exact Park. Just to kind of describe what they do, in the middle of the parking space, there's a sensor that goes in the middle of it, and it reads when a car comes over it. It then starts the 2-hour, you can set the clock to whatever, but for our downtown, it's 2 hours. So it starts the 2-hour parking clock, essentially. Once that 2 hours is lapsed, the police get a notification digitally, hey, they have overstayed their welcome. Ticket then goes to get issued. Council, again, this is for your information. We'll have this scheduled on the January workshop for additional discussion. And at that time, again, we'll kind of be looking for further direction if there's a specific avenue council wants to explore. While I'm talking about this today, I just want to ask council, are we looking at the right path that everybody's kind of thinking about in their head currently? Or is there something else you guys want us to be looking at? And again, you could say, I need some more, I need December to really kind of think about this, but we're just trying to make sure we're heading in the right direction that you guys are thinking.
Kind of processing at the moment.
Yeah, again, it happened just, I think the one we had at 3 p.m. today, the other one was Tuesday, yeah, so yesterday. So that we've had both those demos very recently. Again, I just want to, concept-wise, are we kind of headed in the right direction? Is the idea to still do turnover without meters, or is it?
Yeah, we need to have some kind of like curb management system in place. I just think that meters are the wrong way to do it.
Okay.
Like this would be a market improvement to what we have, I think, in my mind at least.
Okay, and again, that's kind of what we were thinking on our end. So we're just trying to make sure that the idea is still turnover.
My biggest concern.
Yeah, we don't want anybody sitting there all day. That's not what we're looking to do.
My biggest concern is still enforcement and the what are we've got the costs in front of us for the actual system. I would need to look at what the fines are, if the fines will actually cover the cost of either the system after a while or the enforcement that's ongoing, just to see whether it is economically feasible for these things just to keep it going, because it's the same thing that we had with the parking meters. The parking meters don't bring in enough to cover the enforcement measures that do happen, which I know there are some that it doesn't happen often enough for some people. So that would be even more even more money spent in that regard. So that I would want to see the whole picture of what we're doing. So I'm going to have to look up the fine structure and things like that. Do we have any kind of idea, and again, this isn't a tonight, from the police, kind of looking back at the chief, do we have any way of categorizing how much time was spent on parking enforcement? Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't imagine we're gonna have a 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there. It just, rough estimates of. Yeah, what's it take to actually enforce things?
Then again, that's kind of the next question is even if you get how long it takes to go up and down the street, how many times do you want to do that a day? How many times do you want to do that a week?
Well, what I'm looking at is how many.
Yeah, what is being spent productivity?
Approximately how many runs are we doing
Currently.
on that sort of thing? Again, I'm sure that's not something that's actively cataloged, but if we can get some kind of an estimate of, yeah, we do that about 2 or 3 times a day, or 4 times a week, or whatever it ends up being, and that way we can kind of get a breakdown of cost benefit of what we're looking at.
And I will say in relation to that, thinking of how much time the police are spending going up and down to look at all the meters, and then again, you kind of want to weigh that against what is the economic productivity of having the meters, because that's going to be the next. Because again, I'm going to tell you, the parking meters themselves aren't going to pay for the police officers' time. Neither would it with the new system. Neither is it with the old system. The question really comes is weighing, I guess, how much those parking meters are making, along with is it creating economic productivity in businesses. So that would kind of be, again, I think if you're going to look at what we're making and how much it's costing, you have to take both of those into account. And again, that's definitely a harder one to measure, because you got to think of how many spots are, again, let's say, Monday through Friday, obviously a lot of those spots aren't going to get used for businesses. There's only a couple of businesses that are actually open the Monday through Friday days. So there isn't much economic productivity being created there, regardless of whether it's free parking or not. Saturday is going to be one of your bigger days. Friday is going to be one of your bigger days, and we already do free parking on Sundays. So again, Friday, Saturday would kind of be those days. Is it actually is it beneficial? Are people actually is it somehow getting people in front of businesses? Historically, parking meters deter business. I mean, that is a fact of parking meters. So just, again, I know we have a couple business owners here. Keep that in mind, that the studies do show parking meters are not beneficial to business. So again, just wanted to clarify that as well.
I was gonna say, from a strictly personal standpoint, I never have change.
Yeah, I don't either.
Places we have in town.
74.
I'd like to just point out real quick, with regard to Councilman Mead's comments about the cost of enforcement and versus the upfront cost and then the revenue generated by fines. Generally speaking, or broadly speaking, any enforcement activities the city takes are not going to be revenue positive. Whether it be parking enforcement, law enforcement, code enforcement for municipal infractions, we're going to spend far more doing the enforcement activity than we're ever going to see in return on that investment by, fines or other punitive measures against the violators. So the idea of it being like transactional is really, I think, flawed because
I didn't think that it was going to, but what it then leads to is a discussion of best use of resources, and that's kind of where it would lead after that. But I wanted to have the backup first to before we go in that direction.
And again, I will say that's one of the main reasons we're kind of looking at the sensor turnover, because that does notify the police directly of what spot to go look at. I would say the amount of time is really going to be spent going up and checking the meters to see whether they're turned over, whether somebody's paid it or not. That's going to be the bulk of the time of the current meters. But with the sensor, from remembering the demo, it shows each parking spot, they're labeled, gives them an alert. Even all of our police officers are issued phones now. They can there's an app that'll basically tell you if it's over the meter time. So again, it's
Yeah,
more,
I was gonna say, it's a much more efficient
but
system
it is
than.
costlier. That
Yeah,
is without a doubt.
it's a much more efficient system than meters. It's,
Costlier money-wise, but productivity, I think, is where you're going to kind of make that back. So that is just the only thing to consider is that productivity you're going to regain from not having an officer go up and down. So again, there's a lot to weigh on it. Councilmember McCarron, did you have anything?
No, it's a good approach if we enforce it. Parking meters have never been a profit center. I mean, that's not the purpose of parking meters. Parking meters
And I think that's why we're looking
Fine,
to
to
do
keep
away
the-
with it, yeah.
keep the businesses, parking spaces available for the businesses. That's the important thing. And whether we use what we have now or we come into with some place has got to be enforced. I've never favored parking meters at streetscape. I tried to get rid of the parking meters, and
It's a,
decided we were going to keep the parking meters. So, but the question has always been, just like said, is the ability to enforce it. If we don't enforce it, it's like it is. If we do enforce it, then it probably work fine.
And again, I would say that's exactly why we're, because for me as mayor, for instance, it's weighing that productivity of how long it takes an officer to go up and down, how many times we need to do that a day, as opposed to even if it costs more, just a simpler system where it's not taking my officers, an hour to go up and down the road to check all the meters. Again, we're not looking for revenue. I think that's one thing everybody's agreed on. We're looking for the turnover. And these are kind of the perfect systems, I'd say, for it, but with a cost, and that has to be realized that it does have a cost.
well, the only other thing that I'd add on, especially parking meters, but even on this system's better for what I'm about to say, but parking meters are especially bad for it, is are we encouraging the residents to come down to the downtown area? I mean, there's lots of talk in the comp plan and everything else about walkability and everything else. As I prove on the regular, I walk from my house to City Hall almost every meeting. And it's most of a mile, and I am by far not one of the farthest flung citizens from the downtown area. So people are going to be driving their cars, especially when it's cold, especially when it's really hot. And aside from physical attraction of getting the people into downtown, now this adds an extra layer of, and not only that, but now we want you to pay for the privilege of coming to
The
downtown.
hassle.
So it's starting to, it starts to add up. For getting people to come downtown.
Miller, you got anything?
I agree with a lot of Harry's points. Like, it's more efficient for our officers, especially because, like you said, they're not taking that hour to go all the way down the street, and they get the ping on their phones, so that gives them more time to go to our residential areas that are facing right now, and there's a lot of them out there, so I think this is way more efficient, for sure.
Councilmember Colonic? Did you have any additional?
I mean, I do, but the more I talk, the more I cough. So
I know. I'm sorry. I didn't want to not give you an opportunity.
I'm good for now. If I need to
Okay.
talk, I'll talk.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
Additional comments, questions, concerns by council? Again, just review between now and January, please review the packets that we gave you regarding Frog Parking and Exact Park. And again, keep in mind those pricing points that they have on there. Those are not by any means firm or sound numbers. This was a very, we asked them right after the meeting, can you put something together so our council can start considering what those costs look like? And again, there's other systems out there, and we're going to continue looking and try to get those over to you guys before the January workshop. With that said, I open the floor to public comment pertaining to parking meters. If you are signed up, please come forward.
I'm going to wait or pass this out.
Good evening, Chris Tillman, 10 York Street, George's on York. I want to thank you for looking into this and for your acknowledgement that we do need to maintain the turnover of cars. So I just want to ask, first of all, if I understand this correctly, with the censored system, we're not actually asking people to pay to park. We're simply saying if you're there for more than 2 hours, you're going to get a ticket.
Correct.
And I love that, because now nobody has to worry about getting a parking pass from a business. Nobody has to worry about feeding a meter. And I think that those are both great things. I think our meters are a relic of the past, and I think that they need to be gone. And so I am 100% behind getting rid of the meters and replacing them with a system that assures turnover. A couple of things. One of the things that we do have some issue with is that we do have some cars that are parked long-term currently in the, in metered spaces. I know there's a car that's been parked in a spot across the street from us for several days in a row. I know that happens in other locations. I know that there have been times when there have been discussions about people parking at a metered space in front of somebody's house, and they say, "Oh no, that's my space. You can't park there." Well, there's a meter there. This is public parking. So if we can start, if this helps to work towards resolving those sorts of issues, that's a great thing, a very, very positive thing. One of the other things I would suggest that there is a run of houses from 56 down to the Country Kitchen on that side of the street where there are all houses. There are no actual businesses in that location, and so we might want to think about not actually metering some of those spots in there. You know what I mean? Let those residents park there. There's no reason not to. There's no businesses there, and so that's not, you know what I mean? So and if we're putting these sensors in the pavement at all of the metered spots, that's something I think that's probably flexible in the system. We don't have to monitor these 3-4 spots or whatever. So I think it's a great idea. I like the idea of what you guys are looking at in terms of the sensor, in terms of the you don't have to pay anything. I think that whether or not 2 hours is the right amount of time will kind of come out of how this functions down the line. But I think that this is a good start in a direction that helps the downtown community be able to attract more and better businesses, because it takes away one of those big things that does detract from business, which is the parking meters. So, but to Councilman Mead's point, I think that if you're not having to pay anything to come downtown, then you may come down more often.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good plan, and I like it. So thank you.
Before the next public speaker, I did want to add one thing. When talking with both the vendors that we talked to thus far, so far all the vendors we've talked to do have like pilot programs. For us, one of the major concerns is whether this can be implemented through the state streets. So one of the council, when you look through the packets, the pilot programs that they're kind of quoting for instance, is the parking spots out here at City Hall, and that would basically kind of give us a test run of what that system looks like, the data we can get and stuff like that, because we can do that without.
Yeah, before I finish completely, a quick question about the actual physical structure of this. Is this like an RFID kind of thing that you're actually planting in the pavement? There's no wires involved. We don't tear any streets up and do anything like that.
So they get planted in, and they do have maintenance that has to be done on them, but our local guys can do the maintenance on them. there's since we're in a snow area, there's a certain one that we have to get that is different than the other ones. 'Cause
Right,
there's
plowables.
Yep. So like on the, California, for instance, they can do ones that have the solar on top of them. For us, we do have to get ones that are flush on it. So again, and when we talk to the vendors, they're familiar of working with like, state agencies and whatnot to get these types of things done. But the idea is if council did decide to do something like this, we would want to pilot test it in the city parking lot first to make sure we are capable of doing that implementation. So again, I just wanted to speak on that for council as well.
And I think you probably will do better. You'll probably get more efficient use out of it and probably a better return on enforcement than you ever would get from quarters out of the meter. So just off the top of my head, it just seems like this is a good idea, and thank you.
Thank you. Paul, you'd be next.
So earlier today, I did send out an email to everyone, mayor and city council, and my remarks, I'm going to revise those as of this moment because it was based on the assumption that the city was looking to do away with the parking meters altogether or any kind of a system. In the spirit of transparency, I certainly appreciate your sharing a full rationale for these changes. And what I heard tonight with this new system sounds like it's right on target. I think it answers a lot of the issues for the folks who see the parking meters as a deterrent, no matter whether it's profit-driven or not. Turnover is the key. That is the key. Now, I will comment that a police presence periodically checking for violations is not a bad thing and is also a big deterrent. And we like to see the police officers on the main street, the downtown city streets. I mean, it's a good thing. So let me go to the reason why I was very concerned, and it is specifically in my case, but it applies to some of the other businesses. So as an example, the 2 metered spots, which is meter number 27, in front of Ambassadors and Kim's Dance Studio, that is number 2 through 8 Frederick Street, must continue to be enforced with parking fines. So I've had a real problem with tenants from the corner apartment building parking illegally without feeding the meters for long periods of the day, sometimes days at a time, without getting ticketed. So what I'm saying here is that renters in particular will take advantage of the free parking as if it's their own personal property to park. It interferes with those who need to park for short periods of time in front of the business or quickly unload, say, groceries if they are a tenant. In the case of the dance studio, I've observed it interferes with the drop-off of children for class by their parents, especially on Saturday morning. You have to understand some people have no respect for others' need for short-term parking in this town and for drop-off or for the open businesses. Free sitting parking passes for business can't even be used in that case because people are hogging the spaces. I've also know from recent discussions with fellow businesses near the square, they are also opposed to the removal of the parking meters, altogether. Each has their own rationale in addition to mine. Anyway, I do like the sound of the direction that you're heading. I think it's a good way to go, by all means. And thank you for your serious consideration of this challenging issue in our downtown.
Thank
Can
you,
I ask
Paul.
you a question, Paul?
All right, Paul.
Nick has a
Nick's got it.
question.
Paul, Nick's got a question for you.
Yes, Nick?
Hey, so I saw your email. And I wanted to ask what your impression of people being against removing meters. Was that because they assume that we're doing nothing in its place, you think, or?
Yes, absolutely. I believe that was the case, because it became a red flag for those of us who are totally annoyed by people who park illegally, according to the parking meters, and take advantage of the situation. And very frustrating. For example, I had one vehicle that sat in front of the store for 10 days. They were a tenant in the building. It was a crew cab, and it was a large vehicle. And then during the month of, I believe it was September, when we were open on Saturdays, you know, the big vehicles tend to block the front of the stores in some cases. And here's the other thing, is some parking spaces are certainly higher demand than others. So those that are right at the square, everybody is jostling to grab those, obviously. So, you know, if they're not limited to the amount of time that they can park there, it really is unfair to others. I mean, if you were to do a survey, you'd probably learn that. But I think you're headed in the right direction. I like the sound of what you're exploring, and, you know, as long as you can make that happen.
And that's kind of the hardest issue. And I will tell you, part of what kind of spurred this on the admin side when we started looking into it was, again, state highway is preempting spots a bit. They are assigning spots to people. So that's kind of the hassle of, not necessarily the hassle, but us ticketing individuals, I would say, is part of what resulted in an individual getting a spot assigned by state highway. So just keep that in mind. I know what you guys are asking for, but the state's kind of making it clear that they will give people parking spaces if they need to.
Well, those are their official capacities, and, you know, the city or whoever, you know, that's an exception. That's fine. I'm just worried about the people that have no respect for others and take spaces as if it's their own parking place. You know, fortunately, the way we're headed is, I think we'll solve that problem. So I've talked enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Nick, did you have anything more?
Nope, that was it.
Roger that. Yep.
Just one more question, because Paul brought up something, and when you said the assigned spaces, I assume you mean the handicap spaces that have been assigned. So, because one just suddenly showed up in front of our building about 2-3 months ago. But they're not like, you can't just go to the state highway and, you know, give them $100 and say, here, can I get, this is going to be my space now. Is that only based on whether or not there are disabilities involved?
Yeah, so we got notice of it, and there was one to begin with, and we were basically notified that there were more applications for more spots. So it is disability based, and I will tell you, in that general area of downtown, we do have a number of handicapped residents. Yes. So I know people want us to be out there giving them more and more tickets, but what I recall from what basically State Highway said is they believe we're hassling people who have legitimate disabilities that need parking spaces next to their houses to get to where they need to go. So that's my only ask, is be aware that increased enforcement and that ask and us getting called out there to actually give tickets.
So I think that, you know, obviously, and this may require a little research, but into how other municipalities handle that. I mean, there still should be some sort of course, if those are designated spots for designated people with disabilities, you know, if somebody else with a disability can certainly park there, you know, because it's not reserved for X person. But is there any mechanism for requiring any turnover in those spots. And it's a question to be asked, and there must be a best practice out there somewhere. And, obviously, since it's new to us, we don't really know what it might be. But I can see, where if we start getting too many of those out there, then we're back into where we don't want to be.
Yeah, I will say that's kind of the issue with that spot though is, it isn't just pay a meter, right? Because they get extended
Right.
parking. So even if the meter's expired, technically we want to know whether they.
And generally speaking, the spot that's in front of my house is for the gentleman in the apartment right next to us. And that is for his ride share kind of, so that those folks have a place to park without the tail end of their car being out in the lane. And without blocking my driveway, because that's generally what happened.
Yeah.
What has happened in the past is that if there's a car in the first parking space, they pull up in front of my driveway gate and park there and load and unload for him. So, I mean, he doesn't actually have a car, he doesn't use a car, and so that it's not really an issue on my corner. I know that over by the dance studio, there's a spot there for someone who lives in the building, who lives in
Yeah, I was
Dr.
going to
Kate's
say
building.
because there's another one.
But that's somebody who uses their car much more regularly. So, we just
And that was the first.
we
that
just
was
need
the
to be
first
conscious
one.
of that and figure out what that looks like and what the best practices are regarding handling those spaces.
And I'll say if the idea is you can meter those as far as like time goes, again, the current parking meters we're not going to be able to enforce that
Right.
that way. It would have to be one of the newer systems. So again, I'm only saying that because that is kind of what started really, we got to do something different than what we have out there.
And so, and also so many of our parking meters, you can't hardly even read the hours and stuff inside the meter because the plastic is just so yellowed and faded and scratched and unreadable. So, like I said, certainly they're a relic at this point, especially given today's technology. But, I understand at the time that they were put in, it was the best thing we could do, but times have changed. So, thank you.
Appreciate it. Additional comments from council before I proceed? Hearing none and proceeding to CDM Smith 2026 rate schedule. Jim, did you have anything you want to add to this before I went to council?
No, I think the memo that's in there sums things up nicely.
Additional questions, comments, concerns from council?
I will add that we are definitely satisfied with the service we've been receiving from CDM Smith. They're very much back on track from where they were several years ago.
Hearing no additional comments, I'm looking for, what are we actually?
Is CDM Smith who we got Arrow through, or?
No.
Okay.
Arrows, who we got the subcontractor through for the comp plan.
Okay.
So you got CLSI.
yeah.
CLSI.
I
you
knew
got
where he
CDM
was
Smith,
going
you
with
got-
it.
yeah.
Oh,
No,
my
CDM
favorite people.
Smith, we were having some issues, back 2023, I think is when I remember that meeting. But
Yes, we had a couple projects that they were designing for us that languished in the design process, and we ended up seeing some increased costs as a result of those delays. And we sought out alternate engineering firms to do some work during that period, and frankly, they haven't worked out to our benefit either. So we worked through the issues with CDM Smith, and their service has been back to the levels that it was in previous years. So,
Okay.
yeah, totally separate from Arrow.
I gotta ask.
Any additional comments, questions, concerns from council? Hearing none. I'm looking for a motion of adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Looking for a second.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Nick.